Counting down. Okay, so my speech topic is civil forfeiture, and we'll start off with in 2011, Matt Lee was on his way to Michigan from California, and he had just gotten laid off of his job. So his dad gave him $2,000, 400 or $2,400 in cash, so that he could get a new start in California, as he had just gotten a job interview there. So he went, and in Nevada was stopped by police, and he asked for his license and registration, and then was immediately asked how much money he had in the car. So the officer told him that he only heard about sums larger than 10,000. So Matt Lee told him about the money that he had. The officer told him that he would run a canine search, ran it 3 times, found nothing, but concluded that Matt Lee was traveling to California to buy drugs. So he took Matt Lee's money, all of it, and called it civil asset forfeiture, which makes it legal for police to, if they think your property of yours is associated with drugs or anything illegal, they can forfeit it based on their suspicion that you're doing something illegal. So most Americans don't realize that this is legal in all states except for New Mexico, which is legal but is unpopular, and that it's happening every day. So first we'll discuss what civil forfeiture is. Second, examine the countless cases of innocent people who have been affected by it, and where the money goes that the police collect every year. So we'll begin with what exactly civil forfeiture is. So it began in the Prohibition era between 1920 and 1933, where police would confiscate belongings from bootleggers because alcohol was illegal at the time. However, after 1933, it died with prohibition. It came back around the 80s to fight off the drug on wars. It gave police power against smugglers, and they were able to seize money from the drug dealers. And it created safer highways. What exactly is it, though? It gives the police, like I said earlier, the right to seize anything they deem in association with illegal acts. So without being charged of criminal charges or being convicted. It's in rem proceedings, which means that it's not the conviction isn't against you, it's against your property. So Scott Bullock, from the senior attorney of the Institute of Justice, describes that under civil forfeiture, your property is guilty until you prove it innocent. So it doesn't carry the same rights as criminal forfeiture, where you would have a right to attorney and you would be proving yourself not guilty. It's the opposite, and you don't have right to attorney, and you must prove your own innocence based on the property that was confiscated. So that's what it is. So what's happening to people every day? In Philadelphia, the Sorvellis almost had their house seized in March 2014. Christos and his wife lived with their 2 daughters and son, and the police came to their house and arrested their 22-year-old son, Yavani, under drug charges. They told the family that he was selling heroin out of their home. The parents described that they had no idea what he was doing with the drugs. I think he was charged with $40 of heroin on him. However, authorities came back saying that they were going to confiscate their home because it was associated with selling drugs, heroin, out of their house. So it's now associated with an illegal act, which they need to now confiscate. They were only out of their house for a day, but their case still isn't resolved. They, I think, are still going back and forth between their lawyer, which they had to pay for to get it to be in a courtroom, which actually isn't a courtroom. In November 1st, 2011, Jose Geronimo Sorto and his brother-in-law were driving a rented van through Virginia when they were stopped for speeding. They were carrying about $28,000 in cash collected from their church congregation. So it was tax exempt church money. Um, it was supposed to be used for their new church in North Carolina and a trailer for their church in Baltimore. They told the officer everything, showed him their tax exemption sheets and all of the things that they would have needed to prove that the money was not associated with drugs. However, they described that the officer disregarded their story because it contained inconsistencies. So the officer took their money and escorted them both to the police station. And at this time, 3 different lawyers offered to help them out for free. But that's the only case that was resolved within 3 months. Typically, it takes an average of 1 year to resolve any dispute and get the possessions back. Um, However, about 350 owners waited around 2 years to get anything back. It's also really expensive to hire lawyers, so because it's out of your own pocket, sometimes you can't afford to actually hire it. So a case will just immediately go unresolved because someone can afford it. So we've talked about the effects on citizens. Now we will discuss where all of this money that police are collecting is going. Most of the money taken from civil forfeiture supposedly goes to police training. However, John Oliver actually did a report on this in 2011 and reported that most of police departments are allowed to keep most of the money that they earn. So in 2012, in Columbine, Missouri, there was a citizen board hearing where Officer Chief Ken Burton stated there are some limitations on it, limitation on spending, and then proceeded to say, actually, there's no limitations on it. He stated that it's used for wants rather than needs, where needs would be something they would have to formally purchase. He also described it as pennies from heaven to get you a toy or something. It's been referred to as policing for profit because it questions the motivation of civil forfeiture. It's supposed to be used for the fight on drugs, but because of all of the money that it brings in for officers, people question if it's being abused or not. So from civil forfeiture recoveries alone, some U.S. attorneys calculated the total of almost $13 billion from 1989 to 2010, with the numbers increasing in the more recent years. There was a concerned citizen reported in Texas at a public hearing that with or without a law degree, it doesn't take much to know that purchasing kegs of beer, margarita machines, and bottles of Crown Royal for office parties, as was done in Montgomery County, don't qualify for official purposes, which was recorded and happened from civil forfeiture money that was collected at Montgomery County in Texas. So our law enforcement should not be legally allowed to seize the citizen's property without conviction. That goes against your amendment. So in conclusion, civil forfeiture is unlawful. No one should have to have their property taken away before ever being convicted of a crime. Civil forfeiture is supposed to give power to police to fight the war on drugs. However, today most police actually abuse this and innocent people get their property unlawfully